Right, welcome to the third video in the Fortnite from Scratch series. Today, given that if you have watched the first two videos, which you hopefully have, we've learnt about right peaks around cover, and we've also thought about how we can hopefully move in a way that we can use cover and edits to keep creating these right hand peak advantages for us. But with the best will in the world, doesn't matter how many right hand peaks you create if you miss your shots. So today is about hitting your shots. And especially if you're on controller, that should be reasonably easy as long as you've got the basics right. So that's what we're going to do today, is actually teach you how to hit your shots if that's something that you struggle with. And bearing in mind that the main reason that mouse and keyboard players hate us is aim assist means that we bury way more 200s than they do. The guy who I know who I've played against, who was the best and who absolutely destroys me every single time we've ever played, even if he doesn't practice and hasn't played for months, he still hit less 200 shots than I did. He was just so much better at editing than me and creating the right hand peaks that I wouldn't be able to hit him. But when he opened the wall, I would still usually do more damage because aim assist is that strong as long as you know where to keep your crosshair and a couple of things we're going to cover. So before anything, one of the things I realized is that a couple of people I play with who are either reasonably new to the game or just the kind of people that wouldn't watch tips and tricks videos don't know the settings that you absolutely have to have to be able to play this game as well as you can. There is no way that you're ever going to be the best you can be if you haven't got the settings right. So we're going to go through all of them. Now on the first one, this only applies if you're on PC. So you can see that's why I get the cheeky 240, although it doesn't always run at that. It'd be nice if it did. And strangely enough, although I know absolutely nothing about PCs really, apparently because this game is CPU bound, that means it's more focused on your processor than your graphics cards. Some games are more focused on graphics cards apparently. Having your textures high, even though you want everything else low or medium for the view distance, actually shifts the processing because textures is a processor kind of based thing. Anyway, it shifts it in the direction of making it run a bit more smoothly. So that's why I've got that there. If you have got PC on, that's the best combination. I have watched so many settings videos and I've pretty much averaged out what they all say, and this is the common stuff of all of them. VSync screws you up. Show FPS on. Obviously take motion blur off. You'll have that on console as well. That just makes it harder to see and makes it more likely you're going to miss shots. I'm sticking on DirectX 12. That kind of stuff is, you can copy those if you want. I've literally just copied these off people like It's Jerry and blah blah blah. Right, so this is where it gets interesting. You need to have toggle sprint off. You need sprint by default on because this game is complicated and we need to make use of the buttons as best we can. And if you haven't already moved one of the really useful functions that aren't naturally very easy to press and normally have to take your thumb off the analog stick, given that sprint is something that you can just have in the options here, sprint by default on, later on we're going to be able to replace our auto sprint and sprint button on the left analog stick with something more useful that will allow you to do some of the important things a little bit faster. And this game is all about really, really small time windows. Sprint cancels reloading, obviously you don't want. Auto open doors on. Now, I'm sure you guys have seen videos on this, but if you ever go to do an edit and do a door by accident, especially when you're like moving quite quickly, you're in a build fight, you're tunneling, anything like that, it's quite helpful for the door to open naturally for you and you can just run through. Obviously, it can work against you because if you've got auto open doors on, which most people do, and someone edits a door in front of you, you will automatically open it, which you have to be conscious of and move into cover and that kind of thing. But that is very rare. No one's ever done that to me. Every single time auto open doors has worked, it's worked in my favor as far as I'm concerned, so I keep that. Hold to swap pickup is important because all it means is just normally when you pick up a gun, you either have a slot or it replaces the one that you have in your hand. But sometimes when you're under a lot of pressure and you've got a lot of swaps to do and you've just killed someone, you've got an empty slot, but you want to pick up their shotgun because it was better than yours. holding and swapping it means you'll hard swap without filling up the slot, so you can then quickly pick up the fish that they also dropped if you're in the storm or stuff like that. It's actually quite useful to be able to just swap and pick up a gun, but without actually necessarily filling up the fifth empty slot that you have, because sometimes collecting loot off dead bodies you need to do under quite a lot of pressure. Toggle targeting, obviously not. You only want to look down the sights when you're actually holding it in. Mark danger and targeting is up to you. Auto pick up weapons, obviously off, and for auto sort consumables to right, I am gonna let me just come back to this and show you why you wanna keep it off, because I know this is something that most people have, but that's because most people don't know about this glitch. So if you are a controller player, that's right, yeah. If you're a controller player, sometimes there is a glitch. Let's say I had my guns like this, which is how most people have it, yeah. There is a glitch where, regardless of whether or not I have my shotgun in my hand, and I don't actually know what I have to do, I think there's something, I can't remember exactly what happens, but there is a time where if you go into edit, and then I think maybe if you press swap weapon, which should normally take you back to your weapon. Yeah, there we go. It hard swaps to the AR. So let's just say you go to edit a wall, and then you're like, oh no, they're coming through, I want to get my AR out. Not my AR out, my shotgun out again, which normally would just be, if you're in build mode or anything that, you can press the swap weapon button. If you do it here, rather than getting your gun back out, it will actually still swap to the AR. And that happens quite a lot, and a lot of people were getting, essentially it was like a glitch, but they were ending back up with whatever was in slot 1 in their hand. And this was even happening if you had let's say you had sniper slot 1, AR shotgun, it was still ending up with sniper. So it's a bit of a pain, but you could either have them this way, but then that's the opposite way round, and now you have to learn to swap left instead of right and right instead of left, which is pretty awkward, right? That's the exact opposite. As if you just move, let's say they were here, and you just move them one to the left, and then you move them one to the left again. Now the shotgun is in slot 1, but the AR is still the same direction when you're changing left and right. I mean, I know obviously I've only got 2 guns, so it's always going to swap to the right one, but you understand what I'm saying. Having your shotgun in slot 1 doesn't need to mess up the natural order that you swap through, as long as you just shift them from that position, just 1 to the left. And that will then give you the same relative positions, and that won't mess up your muscle memory. It will just look a bit weird. But with that in mind, we're now going to keep our shields and our medkits in slots 2 and 3, and then in slot 4 you carry a sniper, right? And I'll explain why we're going to take a sniper as well. But it's annoying, and we can't use auto sort consumables to the right, but I am telling you, there are loads of times where you will die because you'll be going to edit a wall. Maybe that wall, let's say someone breaks that wall and you're sort of trapped in the edit. You're naturally going to press get your gun back out, which is normally, next weapon, right? If you've got some sort of edit going on or anything like that, and if it swaps at the wrong time and you pop a window on someone, you go to headshot them and you tap them one time with the AR, which I've done too many times, yeah, you're dead. Right, and this is actually out of your control. It's a glitch, so clever way to sort it. Just shift them and done with that. So yeah, sadly, auto sort consumables to right is not an option, even though it is very useful. Reset building choice on is really important because it allows you to do this. And even if I put a ramp down, because it's always going to bring out my wall naturally every time, even though my last thing was a ramp. If I put it away and pull it out again, it means that even if you've just put away another build piece and you want to do this trick, which is the most overpowered trick in Fortnite, shoot someone but then put a wall down straight away and block their return bullet, you need to be able to do this quickly, and especially if someone starts spraying you and you were just building ramps or something, you want to be able to be like, oh no, I'm going straight into walls every time, rather than having to have a little bit of delay where you have to double press it because the first blueprint that you have out isn't the right one. So yes, you want reset building choice on. God, I can't even remember what this thing is. Disable pre-edit option. I mean, I don't even need to show that to you. Everyone has made the mistake of by accidentally editing a wall, a door, any of that stuff, and then you're just screwed. It's not even what they first brought in a couple of weeks ago, where if you changed in and out of build mode, it just reset whatever pre-edit you'd done. Now it's impossible to pre-edit blueprints. So I don't know why it took them 2 years for them to put that in, but that's just ridiculous, but amazing. Turbo building, you're insane if you take that off, because it will just mean that your build pieces all arrive much faster, rather than there being a ridiculous delay and you having to tap it multiple times. You'd have to actually press wall each and every time that you were spinning round if you wanted to do a full box rather than just hold it. So obviously you want that on. Now, confirm edit on release is a bit of a difficult one, because technically it is actually slower. And the reason it's slower is that I can press the first button, the second button, and then the third button faster than I can press the first button, the second button, and then let the second one go. Your muscles are much better on your hands at closing inwards, and the muscles are much stronger closing inwards than they are releasing and moving outwards. So it's just coordinating multiple fingers in a movement. You can tap the table 3 times if you use 3 fingers in a row much faster than you can tap it 3 times in a row with 1 finger, right? So we're taking advantage of the fact that rather than having to release the second one, we can quickly press the third one. However, taking into account that we've got so many buttons to press and it's such a nightmare, and pressing loads of buttons under pressure can be quite difficult, simplifying the process, in my opinion, makes it more consistent, and I'm pretty sure that consistency is the best predictor of how fast you'll be over a long period of time. So for me, not having to confirm anything, like, I just find it easier. And I find, especially when I'm trying to do double edits, if I don't know, I've just always found it easier, and I was really late on the train to do edit on release. The reason why I'm 100% sold on it is because you can reset on release as well, and you do that instead of by doing the normal sequence, which is edit, start the editing process, make the wall full, and then confirm it, which is really annoying because that's completely different to the sequence of buttons I press to open the wall, right? One is the right trigger, the other ones are kind of reset and confirm, right? That's not very... I'll talk to you about why my binds are so weird another time, but anyway, so instead what I do is I open the wall, I then select more tiles, doesn't matter how many it is, holding in the selecting trigger, which means edit on release is active right now. Obviously if I let go it will fail the edit. And then while it's held in, you tap reset, and now because I don't know why, but it doesn't keep selecting the tiles anymore. It sort of like remembers what I did before I pressed the reset button. And then when I let go of the trigger, the edit on release thing kicks back in. So for some reason, I'm still holding the trigger, tap it, and to show you I'm not doing it with confirm, unbound, there's no confirm button anymore. Look, trigger's gone, tap, let go, right? And that I find much easier than what I was doing before. So yeah, I would recommend it on release to you. Big time, especially if you want to exploit the reset on release. And I think the main reason that reset on release is nice is because that means when I'm opening it, I go edit, trigger, let go. When I'm closing it, I go edit, trigger, close. And it just makes it open, close, very, 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 very easy. And I think that opening and closing is pretty much the main thing you need to be doing in this game, because ideally you want to open it, shoot them, close it, right? As we discussed in the first video. Right, on to the rest of the things. Right, so yeah, so we've got edit on release on, contextual tips, I don't even know what they'd be telling you, but off, invert view off, invert airball controls on, just because I'm I'm old, and that's how you used to play flying games. Turbo delete in creative mode. When I say old, I'm not that old. Turbo delete in creative mode. Um, NVIDIA highlights. All of that stuff is just whether or not you have a graphics card on a PC that lets you record stuff. All of this, to be honest, you want off. I don't even know why that's on. Um, because it makes your game run a little bit slower, even if you're on console and it doesn't admit it to you. I actually don't believe the 60 FPS thing that's in the corner. I'm pretty sure that Microsoft and Sony have cut a deal with Fortnite. They have to just put 60 FPS for everyone that's on console all the time because um, I've seen it say exactly the same numbers for like a 10-year-old PS4 and someone's brand new souped up slimline thing that was like the last thing to come out before the PS5 that was just obviously running 1,000 times better and it didn't acknowledge it. So I think that's probably a bunch of lies that was part of a contract that was signed. But anyway, that's just me. Anyway, so all of this, I just put the HUD scale down a little bit because you just don't need it as big as it is and it's filling up your screen. You can't see anything. Pain. The only thing you want off is the debug stats, which you'll and those runtime performance stuff is just going to tell you if you've got like very, very small variations in your connection, and that's not helpful because the game should be distracting you enough that you're not looking at that anyway, right? I don't really play mouse and keyboard; those are insanely high stuff. I can't use that, and Mongols is like 6.2 at the moment, so I don't know why I tried it on that. Anyway, so on to this. Um, Obviously, controller auto run you want on because it hurts your hand to be pressing forward all the time, and there's sometimes you're just running a long way, and it's nice to double tap, especially because you might need to double tap to be dropping people bullets, while you're running and dropping other stuff behind you if you're getting out of storm, but you need to drop people mats. That kind of stuff is quite useful. Build immediately, build a pro. Again, I don't know why you'd ever have this off. It just makes the build pieces appear straight away. So obviously something that you want. Now the reason I don't care about my edit hold time, it doesn't make any difference to me, is that I don't use an edit button that requires me to hold it down. So the duration to hold the button for entering edit mode. That only works if you still use the original bind where your edit button is the same button as your build mode. And if you do that, what it's asking you is how long do you want to hold your build mode button before it becomes the edit button? You shouldn't. There's no way you're going to be able to play this game properly if you're still using build and edit on the same bind. It's so much harder, and there's no way you can do certain things that are really, really important to like the fast-paced elements of this game. You just won't be able to do them if you set it up like that. So I'll show you how to do it differently, but this should be irrelevant hopefully by the end of this video. But if you do want it, it's essentially just telling you how long you have to hold build for before it becomes edit. Vibration off because it will throw off your aim a little bit. Now with these, I would always start lower and work up to these, and obviously we're gonna cover whether or not you're on linear or exponential makes a reasonably big difference in what these values you have. I would say even if I was on Expo, I'd have these same values for my X and Y, but I would put my build mode and edit all the way down to like 1.6, try and copy what Reet has, because this is only, he has a, if you're an exponential player, you need to look up Reet, extra Reet. I'm pretty sure he's still in the extra team, and he is just like one of the most insane controller players you'll ever see. Pretty much changed the way everybody plays. He started the whole idea of full boxing people. Maybe he didn't start. I'm pretty sure Mongol started that with a couple of other moves he did, but he popularized it. And the guy was dropping multiple 30 kill games in Champions League Arena, which is like where all the pros are, and he was dropping 30 plus kill games by himself multiple times in that week, where he'd go into solo trio arena and get his two mates to back out at the beginning, and then he'd wipe out teams of three just by getting really good at taking build modes and doing things like that, and putting pieces down and doing edits and creating angles and doing a whole bunch of things that gave him the advantage. So he's somebody you want to look at, and his settings are literally that. I just use that because I'm on linear, and linear is a little bit more responsive and a little bit flickier. So, doing it as high as 50 isn't necessary. And then again, his ADS values, if you're on exponential, is 17, and I use, what did I have it on? 14. Did I have it on 14? Oh, I hope so. Anyway, maybe if not, we'll give 14 a try. But yeah, so that's actually a pretty typical setup for an exponential thing. Most people on linear tend to have this either a little bit higher or two below. I will get into that in a second, but yeah, so you wanna have these around 2 if you're on linear and around 1.5 if you're on exponential. The reason that you want a difference between them is linear is a lot smoother while you're building, because of the fact that exponential moves slowly at first and then accelerates. It you'll tend to make quite small movements, and then kind of sudden jolts. So your 90s will be a bit more stiff, I suppose, than a linear player, and so you don't need it as fast, and you can then maybe cope with a bit more of the accelerated pace when you're turning, and you can sort of smoothen it out if you have a lower build mode. But then at the same time, there's a guy called Hazard who plays like literally on 80 on both of these, and still plays on high sense on this, and he's, I think he got like 200 plus thousand arena points and was in the top 5 arena point earners in the world on a controller, but playing an exponential on high thing as well. So although the pros tend to average in the 40s to the 50s, you can do high sense if you want to, but I mean, I've probably watched 100 videos of watching the most current pro settings, and literally for the last 2 years, everyone's changed from kind of 39%. 43 was like really popular with quite a lot of pros for a while, and then a couple of people like Wolfies was as high as 47. There was only one person who was doing well above 50, and that was Lecce, and he's arguably one of the best controller players in the world competitively, and is not someone you should be basing your mechanics off, or what you're aiming for off straight away. I used to play on 53, and don't get me wrong, you can hit some cool flick shots, but you just don't have the consistency with people jumping into your box and reacting like that. So I think you could probably push it up as high as like 47, even 48. The best console player I ever came up against, who his tag at the time was baby scoped, and he had earnings and everything, he was playing 48 at the time. So I think you can do that, but because I'm on PC and I've got better frames and I've got a bit more time to see people, I like to slow it down just that little bit to make sure I've got time to focus on hitting headshots every time if I can. Now the reason I have 60, most people, like I said, will tend to have this lower, is because I don't actually like to have too high of an edit sense, and at the same time, I don't want to be able to move. The reason I don't want to have too high an edit sense is because when you're doing things like, let me just go back. Would I like to save them? Yeah, go on. Why not? When I'm doing that, yeah, the sideways element of all of these is actually quite hard to control. It's very easy to go just off to the side, right? So actually having a slow left and right, manageable left and right is good news for me. So what we do is we keep the edit sense reasonably low. Yeah, it's fast, but it's not manageable. I can still, if I need to edit, that's not the fastest in the world, but it's fast enough for at least the beginner series that we're doing right now. I don't need to be able to go any faster left and right, but unfortunately, when I'm flipping ramps, if I was to, let me put my setting down to 46, and I try and flip this ramp, can you see how the up and down, this is me going as fast as I can, the up and down is not the same speed as the left and right there. There was a mismatch. And the reason is because there's actually another problem with the camera. The camera doesn't just move left and up and down, but they actually move left and up and down along different planes. So this is a 360 plane. This is just about 180, maybe a little bit less than 180. And if you notice, when they're supposedly at the same speed, right now, 46, that is obviously faster than that. You can see that clearly. There is no way that those are the same speed, right? Now for me, because I'm a Call of Duty player, I always want these to be the same speed. I don't understand why I'm flicking my controller up and down completely, but Anyway, because there's a difference, and the reason they do it is I imagine that they actually do 46% of your maximum turning speed this way, and then 46% of the maximum speed that would go through this plane at the same speed that you would do a full circle. I think they're trying to match up the two dimensions. Anyway, it's annoying because number one, like I said, if we edit through a box and we're looking down here, which to be honest is why A, we shouldn't be editing on the left, and B, we should be finishing them across the crosshair placement head height, right? But if I do ever do this, and I'm looking at their feet, and aim assist kicks in, it's taking forever to get to their head. So one of the things we want to do is we want to whack our sensitivity up to counteract the strength of it just locking onto people's feet or kind of hip area as we drag it to the head. But the second thing is now it's on 60, right? It's going a lot more relatable pace to that one. They feel like the same pace to me. And actually, when we're looking up and down, that actually feels a bit more matched, in my opinion. And so it then just makes doing circles more consistent. And obviously, hopefully I can remember my new buttons here, but doing circles is pretty central to a lot of what we're doing here, right? We're always doing circles. We're doing little circles when we edit. We're doing little circles when we aim. So yeah, being able to have a consistent up and down that I feel matches itself really helps. But most importantly, it means I can flip ramps pretty quickly and not have to have, I mean, if we matched it up to 60, right? And then we go and try and edit a wall. I mean, it's so easy. I'm really pulling at the same speed I normally do. I mean, it's just, that is insane, right? I'm actually trying genuinely to, and I just can't use it. I mean, it's doable and you could train it, I'm sure, but not for me. Anyway, so that's why I've got 46 and 60. And there's a little bit of a similar thought here, which is when you're looking down sights, again, you still want to be able to drag it to the head a little bit quicker. I found 16 does that enough. And I can also track people when they're like impulsing, or if they're like flying upwards or downwards. That is fast enough generally to track them. And although I would prefer to have this at like 12, you can't track people who are flying through the air, impulsing, or with a glider on any less than 14, in my opinion. Look dampening time, I actually believe you shouldn't have on exponential or linear, having tried both. But like I said, this Reek guy who's crazy, he does 20. I know a lot of pros that do 0, but he does 20, and I have no life of me why. But I mean, if you look him up, the guy's insane. So, and then again with dead zones, for a while I actually went like super low. And I went all the way down to 5 when I got a new controller. But not only does that not last long, and you end up having to move it up, which is annoying, because you end up having to shift your mechanics and it change how responsive the stick is and everything like that. But a lot of the big pros don't even use the super small ones because it can be too responsive. And this one is a really, really, really confusing setting. You'll only have this if you're on PS4 or on PC. Sadly, for some reason, they haven't offered it to Xbox players. But foot controller is a guaranteed on if you are playing exponential. If you try it, look, we'll do it just very quickly now. That's it. If you try it now, look, this looks quite smooth. Doesn't actually look, it looks quite stiff, but not too different from linear, yeah? It still sort of move, yeah? Mate, exponential with no foot controller is actually gross. I know it doesn't seem like it, but can you see how my character stops sometimes because it's just so stiff that I'm trying to. That is. Look, if we go back to linear just very quickly, so you can see the difference in responsiveness. Yeah, for controllers off. Yeah. If I want to turn left and right, it's so easy to do this, right? That's the way you separate linear and exponential. If you want to shake on linear, it will allow you to aim a little bit too far to the left and come back because it's super responsive. I'm going to go and try to do the same movement on exponential, and it probably will not move at all. Oh no, that's weird. But it doesn't move consistently. Can you see it's sort of like, maybe sometimes I might be pressing it ever so slightly more, and then the accelerator kicks in, clearly a bit more on the left it would seem, and it drags. I mean, that was not as good as an example as I thought it was. But essentially the way that exponential works is exponential moves slowly at first and then speeds up later on. Linear moves at pretty much the same speed, so exponential lets you have fine control, but it takes ages for you to get to your maximum pace, so you struggle with stuff like flick shots and spinning round and maybe having a bit of consistency with your tracking when it's at mid-range and they're going reasonably fast rather than tiny little movements. Linear is great for really up close fighting and tracking people and flicking to them, but you try and hit a shot long range on linear, or you try and track somebody when aim assist hasn't kicked in, and you'll be laughing at yourself at how bad you are at the game. I apologise about the shaking. That demonstrated almost nothing. Right. Anyway, so I would have foot controller on only if you're on exponential. The only person I've ever seen use linear and foot controller successfully, I feel like it slows your sense down a little bit. The guy was using like 55 or something. He did really well. I can't remember. I think his name was Hazard. But yeah, he played really well that season. And he got like, he definitely came, I think like top 100 in arena points in the world that season. And he was using foot controller on and 55% for both, which was quite interesting. And I think maybe some of that motivation was just trying to deal with this stupid ramp flipping problem that happens if you have a low up and down. Obviously, no boosts. They'll throw you off. No boosts, no ramp time, none of that. Right, that's the most complicated page done.